Amen. You may be seated. We sung that song, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. It says, what a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Sweet to walk in this pilgrim way. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Oh, how bright the path grows. I have a blessed peace with my Lord so near. When you look at what other religions teach or they preach or that they promote, you will not find them saying, leaning on the everlasting arms. No Muslim would ever say, leaning on Allah's arms. That would just be repugnant to them. That would be blasphemy to them. That would be atrocious for them to even think that they could lean, possibly, some way, possibly approach Allah and to lean upon His arms. No Hindu God would be concerned with you ever coming close to them, coming near to them, and leaning upon their arms. Buddha would not say, you can come lean on the arms of Buddha. No other religion has a God like our God. As a fact, all the other gods, all the other religions, their gods tend to push man away from their deity. Our God calls us near. Our God beckons us to come with Him, to approach Him, to boldly come into His presence. You will not find a boldness in another religion saying you can boldly approach these other gods. They tend to hide behind a veil. They tend to be unapproachable in their what they would call as a deity. You would not come near to them, but we have a God who says, come to me, all who are heavy laden, all who are weary, and what? I will give you rest. Our God will do that. Our God is the only one who says that He will give you rest. Other religions teach, what can you perform? What can you do? How can you satisfy their God? How can you earn their God's love? How can you earn their God's attention? How can you defile yourself so that their God will even know who you are, so that their God's eye might fall upon you? Our God does not teach that at all. Our God calls us to Him. In Genesis, you look at Noah. You see that God calls Noah to where? What is God preparing? We're going to have a hurricane come through here, right? We're going to have the remnants of a hurricane. What is it Barry? Is that who it was? Barry. He's going to come through here and he's going to drop a few inches of rain on us. And that's not too bad for my yard. I don't mind mowing that much, but Barry's going to come through here. What did Noah do? Noah was preparing for a Barry about 1,000 times, right? Or 1,000,000 times Barry that Noah was preparing for. And what did God do for Noah and his family? God would have done it for all of mankind. It was attainable for all of mankind. But for over 100 years, mankind laughed at Noah and what he was preparing, right? They had never heard of this hurricane to come through. They had never heard of a tropical storm come through. What is this rain that you are talking about, Noah? We don't have rain here. What did God have Noah build? An ark. What was that ark? That ark was God calling Noah to Himself. God's saying, Noah, I have this for you. I have this security for you. God was calling Noah. Noah, you come to the ark. You come to the ark. There is safety in me, Noah. You come to this ark. Christ calls you to something else. Christ calls you to the cross. You come to the cross. God provided a way through the ark for Noah and his family to be rescued from a sinful world, right? That's what God was destroying, was a sinful world. What did the cross do? God says, you come to the cross and I will rescue you. It was an ark for Noah, but it's a cross for you. You come to the cross and God will rescue you. The theme of Scripture is Jesus calling. You can see Jesus calling. And what is He saying? He's saying, come to me. Come to me. He calls us to the cross for forgiveness. If any man is thirsty, what does Jesus say? Jesus says, come to me. If you are thirsty, come to me. The mission of Jesus is to do the Father's work. John 4:34 says this. I'll just read it to you. You can turn in your Bible to Luke 14. But the mission of Jesus was to do the Father's work. John 4:34 says, Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of Him who sent me and to accomplish His work. Jesus says, that's what I'm to do. I am to accomplish what God has sent me to do. I'm to accomplish His work. That is fulfillment for me. That's my mission. That's my mission statement. He has called me to do something and I am going to fulfill that. If that was the mission of Christ, if that was the mission of Jesus, we should have a passion about His mission. There should be a passion about us doing His work, the work of God. A passion to seek and save those who are lost. Luke 14. If you look at Luke chapter 9 through chapter 18, Luke is constantly pointing out that Jesus is on His way to Jerusalem. Jesus is going up to Jerusalem. Luke continues to go back and to reaffirm where Jesus is headed. Why is that? Because Jesus is going to do the work of the Father. Jesus is going to do what the Father has sent Him to do. The Father has called Him to do something, has given Him an assignment. So Jesus, in these chapters here, 9 through 18, Luke is saying, hey, Jesus is on His way to Jerusalem. Why? Because the Father has a work for Jesus in Jerusalem. The work that the Father had for the Son was the cross. And Luke continues to point that out. He's going to the cross. He's going to Jerusalem. The cross awaits Him in Jerusalem. He's going there because that's the work that the Father had for Him. The work of the cross. And that work of the cross was going to save the lost. And that was their heart. That was the heart of God, so that man could come to Him. So that man would have a bridge, so that man would have an avenue to approach God, so that the barrier, the veil would be torn, it would be broken. The chains would be freed. So Jesus is going to Jerusalem because that's where the Father has sent Him, because the cross awaits Him in Jerusalem. So in Luke 14, Jesus, that's what He is doing. He is on His way to Jerusalem, and we're going to see that there's going to be a banquet that's held. He's going to be an honored guest at this banquet. Our mission, Jesus is on a mission, right? His mission is to go to Jerusalem where the cross awaits. Our mission, whether we believe it or not, our mission is not to come in here and sit on a pew. That's not the mission that God has called us to. God has not said, hey, for 1 hour a week, I want you to be on mission, and that mission is for you to sit on a pew inside these 4 walls here and to shake a couple of hands during that 1 hour right there. That's not our mission. This pew should be more of a launching pad for you. Have any of you ever seen a space shuttle or a rocket or something like that launched? Any of these new rockets that are being launched there by these new companies, and wanting to put civilians in space, or maybe in the past you watched the space shuttle be launched, or one of those other rockets that were launched up decades ago. But you remember that, don't you? You remember you go out there to the Space Center at Cape Canaveral out there in Florida. You go out there and you see that building where that shuttle was housed. I remember touring that building, and they said the building was so big. You're on this tour of that thing in the building. They said the building is so big that clouds and atmosphere just form up in the top of it. I don't know, maybe the thing rained in there or something, but they had to regulate that because it was such a massive building. And what did they do? They'd put that space shuttle, they'd put it on this little these little tracks, and these tracks would move. I think it was like 2 miles an hour, wasn't it? It was just incredibly slow crawl, and it would take 24, 48 hours, whatever it was. It would take a days to get that space shuttle out there from the building to the launch pad. But when that thing was set, there was this power in it. There was this explosive power. When they pushed those buttons, when they ignited those boosters, when they set that fuel on fire, that thing would just blow up. It would just shoot up into space. It would just shoot up into the air, and everybody would watch it. This pew is not for you to just stay rooted in. You're not to be rooted into the carpet here, or the pew, or the padding. This is a launching point. And after the service is over, we should explode out of here to do what? To be about the Father's business. And the Father's business is seeking and saving those which are lost. This is a launching place for us to launch out of here and to serve the Father. Sometimes we are launched into difficult scenarios. Sometimes we are launched into difficult places. Sometimes we are called to go into awkward situations, uncomfortable situations. Maybe you've done that. Maybe you've done some visiting. Maybe you've gone to see other people. Maybe you've knocked on their door. Now, for the most part, I'm guessing most of y'all right here, you have flooring in your house. You have some kind of carpet, hardwood, vinyl, linoleum. You have something that separates you from the dirt beneath the house, right? I mean, I would say everybody here is fortunate enough to have that. Probably everybody here, you have windows on the walls there. If you have a hole in the wall, you probably have a window in that. If you don't, let me know. We can probably get a couple of dollars together and fix it for you. I think we could do that for you if you're missing a window. But most of you, when you have a 90-degree corner back there, you don't see the sun through it. You don't see daylight through that corner. Your houses are pretty airtight, pretty square, pretty solid, right? But that's not the way when every house I've been in, every person's door that I've knocked on. I've seen I have reluctantly stepped in to some houses, to some dwellings, to some places where people live. And I wonder, how do you live in this place? But there needs to be a passion about seeking and saving all, not just those who have carpet on their floors, but even those who don't have flooring in their dwelling place, even those that have holes in the walls. There needs to be a passion about saving those lost people as well. So Jesus is on his way, and he's going to come into this house. This house would have been a nice house, but there's going to be somebody in there that doesn't look like him, that doesn't look like the others, doesn't look like the homeowner as well. And that's why I gave that illustration. You as a homeowner, your house is going to be one way, but those that are lost, their house, they may look like something different. They may not dress like you. They may not wear the same jewelry. They may have a few more holes in their ears than what you think is acceptable. But Jesus is going to talk to this one man. And ministry can be difficult. It can be difficult to step into those conversations where those people don't look like you, they don't dress like you, they don't act like you, they don't use the same language that you use. How do you expect them to talk or act when they're lost? Because they are lost. So it can be difficult. Verse 1, it happened that when he went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, they were watching him closely. So this guy, the person who is the host here, he's a leader. He's of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin were the political leaders. They were the religious leaders. So this guy is a religious leader. He is a political leader. And this banquet that they're having, it's on the Sabbath. That's what the Scripture says. That's what the verse says. Every time that Jesus performs a miracle on the Sabbath, it drives these Pharisees out of their mind. They cannot stand that he is doing a miracle on the Sabbath. Should we get out and save and seek to save the lost on the Sabbath, on the Sunday? Yes, we should. Should there be any day of the week set aside where we say ministry is not to be done on this day of the week? No, it should not be. But these Pharisees have said, do not heal, do not do ministry on this day of the week. 7 times, at least 7 times that we know of, that Scripture gives account for, Jesus does ministry on the Sabbath, and it just blows their mind. So these guys are at this Pharisee's home. They're eating bread and they're watching Jesus, and that's what the word says. It says it happens. They went into the house of this leader. It's on the Sabbath. They're going to eat bread. They're going to have a banquet, and they're going to watch him closely. Now that watching means that they're going to spy on him. They are watching him like a spy watches, trying to gain information, trying to break something down, trying to investigate something. Like a spy watches looking for information. That's how they are watching Jesus. What are they watching for? Verse 2 tells us. They're watching him because of this. And there in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. Now this guy was a plant. And you talk about these things that are planted, these things that are prearranged. I watch these I try not to watch these political thinking things, but I think most of them, what I'm saying is you have these people out there to ask questions in these political gatherings. I think they're all just planted. I think these questions are planted. I think it's all set up. I think it's all prearranged. I don't believe a thing that comes out of their mouth, the question that's asked or the person that answers it, I think it's all a bunch of phooey. I think if you're betting on that, you might as well just give me your money and let me have it if you're going to bet on what either one of them is saying. But it's all a plant. That's what I'm saying. These people are planted out there to ask questions, easy questions, toss-up questions, or to confuse somebody. This dude was a plant. So plants, people being planted in situations, have been going on for a long time. It's not something that just happened 6-8 years ago, planting people in situations. This dude with dropsy, this dude with this condition is a plant here. They want to watch what Jesus does. It's a trap. Jesus was in a difficult place to do ministry. They were trying to trap Jesus. They've set him up. It's the Sabbath. Will Jesus be able to not perform a miracle on the Sabbath? Will Jesus be able to not go door to door, inviting people, sharing the gospel with people? Will Jesus be able not to have compassion for the lost on this day? It's a plant. It's a setup. Can we get him to fail? Can we get him to fall? Can we trick him? That's what they've done. So Jesus is in a difficult place. Sometimes the ministry of Jesus, sometimes ministry is fun. I bet if you asked Peter, how fun was walking on water? He said, it's pretty fun. It was pretty fun while I was up there on top. It was a good place. I enjoyed walking on water. How fun was it to feed the 5,000, you disciples? How much fun? That was a lot of fun. We had fun that day when we just sat down with the teacher, with our rabbi, with the master there, and we watched him multiply all of this, and we sent them home with more than was started with. That was a fun day of ministry. How much fun is it to heal the sick, the lame, the blind? Oh, that's fun. That's fun when we do those things. That stuff is fun. Sometimes ministry is difficult, though. It's not always fun. We need volunteers. We need help. We need people to be serious about tithing. We need people to be faithful about tithing. We need that for the ministry, for the activity, for the physical property to maintain that, to keep that up. That's not always fun to talk about. Sometimes ministry can be difficult. We need your help over here. We need assistance over here. Is there a passion for the mission of Jesus Christ to seek and save those which are lost? Whether they're in the Olive community, Marshall County, Western Kentucky, Kentucky itself, the United States, or on the other side of the world. So still in verse 2, there needs to be a passion amongst the people of God to seek and save all those who are lost. And there in front of him, that there means behold. It's like surprise, surprise, surprise. This surprise was in front of Jesus. Behold, this person was in front of Jesus. So they're sitting at this table. This table would have been in the shape of a U. It would have been like 3 tables. You'd have the 2 legs of the U, and then you'd have the bottom part of the U. So there's 3 tables that make up this U, probably. And they're sitting there. And at the center of each of the tables there would have been the place of honor. And at the bottom of the U, not on the legs, but the bottom, would have been the most honored place. And that's the place they would have given to Jesus. Even on this day, they would have given him the most honored position. So he would have been sitting right there in the middle of that U, and in that place of honor right there. And the dinner around Jesus would have been lawyers, would have been more of the Pharisees, would have been more of the Sanhedrin. There would have been political leaders would have been sitting there. There would have been heads of states. There would have been cabinet members. There would have been people that would have been invited maybe from out of town that held special places. This would have been a high-ranking banquet. But right across from Jesus is this plant, this difficult person. This person that doesn't look like them. This person that doesn't fit in. This person that might have had an odor. The person that doesn't smell like you, that doesn't dress like you, that doesn't have flooring in their house, that has holes in the side of the walls, that is less fortunate than you for one reason or another, and you just kind of shun away from. You just kind of turn away from. And don't act like you don't, because I do it too. Sometimes I cringe when I shake some people's hands. And I'm wondering, where is the hand sanitizer? I'm wondering, is there anything that can wash this off of me? Sometimes I just have to worry and just say, God, you're just going to have to take it what it is. You're just going to have to do what you can. You're just going to have to wash me and clean me up and pray I don't catch what they've got. So there's a man sitting right across from Jesus, and he's got dropsy. All these other people, he didn't fit what everybody else looked like. So they're trying to trap Jesus. They've got this sick man there on the Sabbath. Why did they bring a sick man into the banquet on a Sabbath? Because they wanted to see, Jesus, can you withhold ministering to somebody on the Sabbath? Do we look at people as lost, and do we see them as need? They're in need. Or do we just look at them as they're outward? Do we just see people as outward or do we look at the lostness of their soul? Because Jesus was not concerned with the ailment, the physical ailment of this guy as much as he was the spiritual need that was in everyone's life. So what does Jesus do? Verse 3, it tells us what he does. And Jesus answered. Jesus answered and spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Is it lawful to go out and do ministry on Sunday or not? Is it lawful to lead somebody to salvation on any day of the week or not? Is there 1 hour of the week that I'm not supposed to do ministry? Is there 1 hour? Is there 12 hours? Is there a 24-hour period during the week where I'm not to be about the Father's business? I think Jesus says it's otherwise. Whenever the opportunity arises, whenever it presents itself, we should walk into that and share the healing power of the Messiah, of the one who went to the cross, of the one who says, come to me, of the one who says, you can lean on the everlasting arms. These arms will not crumble, they will not break, they will not fade away. You can rest upon these arms. Jesus is showing us that at all opportunity, at all times of the day, be about the Father's mission. Have a passion for the Father's mission. So what does he do? And Jesus answered. Well, as far as the text says, there wasn't a question asked. There's not a verse 2b right here listed between. Jesus answered without a question being spoken. Jesus answered. Nobody had asked anything. Jesus read their mind. Jesus knew what was on their mind. You guys haven't asked a question, but I'm reading your mind right now, and I'm going to tell you. I'm going to present a question to you. So he answers. Jesus is going to answer a question that hasn't been asked. Now see, the written law did not say you could not heal on the Sabbath. That was not in the written law, that was in the Jewish oral law. The Jewish oral law was tradition. Tradition. You don't do this. You don't heal on the Sabbath. That's tradition. That's legalism. Legalism was what they were consumed with. Don't do this. We should all think it humorous or silly not to lead somebody to Christ on a certain day of the week. Verse 4 and 5. But they kept silent. So Jesus said, hey, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? So they kept silent. And he took hold of him and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well? Now I think the King James might say, which one of you will have a donkey or an ox fall into the well? Maybe a donkey and the son are the same thing. It depends on what day of the week you're asking somebody what their son's like. I don't know why that's there. But which one of you, I'll explain a little bit of it to you here in just a minute. Which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well and will not immediately pull him out on a Sabbath day? Now, dropsy. This guy has dropsy. That's a condition of the heart and kidney where it's unable to remove the fluids of the body. The body does not have the ability to take care of the fluids that are on it. The body would swell up. It would be hard to breathe. There would be chest pains. There would be a retention of water. But they also, this dropsy disease would also have them craving for water. So this person who is affected with dropsy has this condition. They have this craving for the very thing that their body can't cope with. So Jesus is going to use this example. This person has dropsy. He's going to use an example. This person has a problem with water. He's going to use an example of a son or an ox or a donkey falling into a well. Now the son was a picture of their social security of the day. That was their, the son was going to take care of the family when the family got old. When the family was unable to, when mom and dad were unable to take care of themselves, the son would use the family business, would expand the family business. He would support them in their old age. So the son, if the son falls into this well, what are you going to do? You're not going to leave the son there. You're going to get the son out. Why? Because that's your retirement. That's your 401k. That's your Social Security for end of life. Now the ox, he says, if you have a son fall in there, that's your Social Security. Or if you have an ox fall into a well. The son was support for the future. The ox was financial support for that day. If you have that days, if you have your wallet fall into the well, you're going to go in the well and get it out. You're going to pick it out. You're going to go in there, pick it up. You're going to retrieve it. If you have your retirement fall in there, you're going to take care of it. So if the son falls in, the future income, you're going to meet the need. If the current financial being falls in there, you're going to do something for that as well. Jesus was telling these Pharisees, these lawyers, hey, you have it in your mind. I'm asking you if it's lawful, but what you have in your mind is that you are more concerned with the financial than you are the inner spiritual being of the person themselves. That's what Jesus says. You're thinking, all you think about is the financial, when there is a lost person, soul, spirit at stake. So that brings us to ask. Jesus is basically asking these leaders here, these spiritual, these religious, these political leaders, he's asking them, do you have a heart for the people? That's the question for us. Do we have a heart for the people? Do we have a heart for the lost? Jesus, the mission of Jesus was people. Do we have the same passion as Jesus? Do we have a passion for people? Who were the people that Jesus was talking about? I've been talking about it too. I've been telling you who these people are. It says it in verse 13. You can read the parable right there, 7 through 15. You can look at 16 through 24 as well. You can read the parable. There are some that wouldn't come. So Jesus says, you go out and get these other ones. Verse 13. Invite the poor. Invite the ones that don't have flooring. Invite the ones that are crippled. Invite the ones that have ailments. Invite the ones that don't bathe as often as you. Invite the ones that have, mats in their hair. Invite the ones that are less fortunate than you. Invite the poor, the cripple, the lame, the blind. These were the people that Jesus was talking about. He wasn't just literally talking about, hey, just invite the people that come out of the optometrist office and they've been declared, legally blind. He wasn't saying just stand by an optometrist office and invite those people that are legally blind. That's not what he's saying. He wasn't saying stand by the orthopedics office and invite those that have just had a limb amputated. He wasn't saying just wait for those people to walk out of the doctor's office and invite them, or invite the ones that walk out of the Social Security office that just picked up or just got their government card renewed or just applied for financial assistance. He wasn't saying just wait for these people to show up. He's talking about a spiritual condition, because if you want to admit it or not, you're all crippled, lame, and blind without Jesus Christ. You all have a spiritual condition that you cannot fix on your own, and you need Jesus Christ, and the world needs that too. And do we have a heart for the lost people? Do we have a heart for those that can't fix their condition on their own? These people in verse 13, they're the lost. They're the ones in sin. The people in verse 13 are the ones who are far away from God. That's who they are. See, they talked about this banquet, and there's the guest there. At times, the church members were the ones who didn't have time. They don't have time to have compassion for the lost. So Jesus says, you go out there and you find those who are hurting. You go out there and you find those who are in spiritual need and bring them in. Because oftentimes the church says, boy, this pew sure feels good. Feels nice. I sure hope somebody else does something. So you do that and you have these rewards. Verse 14, and you will be blessed. You go out and you invite these people that are spiritually in need, and you'll be blessed since they do not have the means to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. See, Jesus couldn't resist reaching the lost people. Jesus couldn't resist healing the person with dropsy, the person with the condition. He couldn't sit on the sideline. Jesus couldn't sit there. The Father had called him, had given him the game plan. He knew what his mission was to do. And I pray that we can't sit on the sideline either. I pray that we have a desire. I pray that we cannot resist reaching the lost, even on our road, down our street, close at home. I pray that we cannot resist the Father's mission and that we're not secure on the sideline. See, I passed out. I went out and passed out several bags, knocked on doors, inviting people to church or Bible school in particular, giving them a little information about the church, knock on their doors. Some of them were home, some of them weren't. Go back, try to catch them at home. Passed out several little bags doing that, and I don't know if that did any good. I don't know if it did any good or not. Martha's got some mints in the back right there in the workroom. I put some mints in the bags. I thought, well, maybe that'll be good. I'll put some mints in them. I thought, well, maybe the mints aren't good enough. I'll stop and get some candy from Walmart. Then I started putting candy in the bags. Well, maybe the candy, maybe they got a sweet tooth and that will do something for them. I don't know if those bags did any good or not, but I'm going to tell you something that was better than the bags. 2 times in the past week, somebody told me, said, well, I've been talking to so-and-so. I've been talking to somebody. Maybe they were new in the area. Maybe they've been in the area for decades, and they're unchurched, they're unreached, they're not plugged into a church, they're not involved in a church, they're not active in a church. But hey, I just started talking to them. I met them somewhere, and they actually live here in the area. They actually live, just a couple of miles down the road from the church. And I was telling them about the church. I was telling them that it was a good church to go to. And I was like, well, what's their name? What's their name? Well, here's their last name, and they live on this road, or they live out there in this area. You know what? I looked it up. Look it up online. They were there. They were there online, so I stopped by their house. The very next day, I stopped by their house. Had a much better reception. Was received into that house. Much better. I think it was much more productive than the handing out of the bags, but I had to start somewhere with the bags. And another person told me, said, hey, there's this family right over here. I've been meaning to talk to them. I've been meaning to stop and spend some time with them. And I said, well, where are they? And he told me, so I stopped there. But those two conversations, those 2 interactions were much more productive, as far as I know, than passing out the bags. But why were they productive? They were productive because somebody else had already done something to get something going. They had already introduced themselves to them. You see what I'm saying? They had already broken the ice. They had already said, well, hey, this is me. I'm from here. Would you be interested? And then I walked in behind them, and it seemed good. It seemed to be productive because 2 people had already started a conversation and a relationship with somebody else. What I'm saying is, don't sit on the sideline. Don't sit on the sideline. If you've been talking to somebody, I'll be glad to help you. I'll be glad to stop by their house too, with you. And I'm not going to dress up like a preacher. She knows what I mean. I'm not going to. We can talk about that later, but don't sit on the sideline. Have a passion for the mission of Christ. Maybe this evening you go out there and you find verse 13. The poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, literally or figuratively. Hey, we'll take them if they're literally like that. But even if it's the spiritual condition, maybe you go out there this evening and you find those people. You find one and you start a conversation with them. I'll be glad to help you. I'll be glad to follow up in a day, a week, whatever that time is. Join you, help you out. And maybe, just maybe, we can catch on to a passion for the Father's mission. I ask you to bow your head.